Hello, photography class. This is your socially distanced professor, Dr. Cummings, and I'm going to be giving you a presentation on the artist Andy Goldsworthy, as he is the basis for our next project, which is the second to the last project. So Andy Goldsworthy is a Scottish artist, and he works in nature, and he finds things in nature in the various area that he's working in. It's all local materials, and he manipulates them in the environment, and then to create these beautiful, wonderful visual expressions. And then he documents them through photography. Now, the photography is incredibly important because his work is ephemeral, which means that oftentimes, shortly after he creates his work, it is destroyed by wind or water or animals running through it or anything like that. But he accomplishes these really amazing sculptures in nature, and then oftentimes he'll photograph them and he'll put them in a collection of a book, and he sells the book. He's a great photographer as well as a great sculptor. And I've always been really, really fascinated by his imagery and just his ability to see things in the environment using his raw materials around him, and then to create these wonderful creations and then document them so that he can share them with other people. So the assignment that we're going to be doing is that you are going to go into your environment, of course, adequately socially distanced, and you are going to find things in your environment, and you're going to make work like or inspired by Andy Goldsworthy. You can do your own research. I'm going to give you a video to watch as well before you start this project. And he works in all seasons, so spring, summer, fall, winter. And he's able to create artwork at any time in the year, and he travels all over the world, and he creates artwork with whatever is available to him in whatever environment he finds himself in. He's been to America, he's been to Japan, he's been even to the North Pole, and always finds things to work with in the environment and create these beautiful images that are based off of really archetypal symbols such as the river, time, circles, squares, etc. These are leaves of grass that he's bent. Now, I've talked about his work as being ephemeral. And ephemeral means that the work does not last for a very long time. Oftentimes, he'll just get the work done, have enough time to photograph it, when all of a sudden, wind or rain or some sort of force of nature will cause the work to start to disintegrate. This is a piece he did in Pennsylvania when he was in residence there. And this is the work the next day when he came back. The next day when he came back to it. And then the next day when he came back to it again. So as you can see, his work will not last very, very long in nature. So it's important to document the work with a photograph. He does some truly amazing things. This star form he made out of icicles, which he actually had to lick and hold together in order to make them stick together. And he has lots and lots of failures as well as lots of successes. This is an icicle spiral that he made. So he uses a number of different techniques. We've seen some of them already. One of them is he creates these holes, and these holes act either as themselves or as the basis for something else. This is rowan leaves, which are of different shades from yellow to deep red, and it's all from the same type of rowan plant or tree. And he carefully separates them into their various values and hues, and creates a hole, and then surrounds the hole with these rowan leaves, and it's really, really quite amazing. This is a similar technique, but it's not edged with anything. But this is a type of his hole technique, which is demonstrated in this image right here, where he actually starts to dig the hole and gets it really deep so that light doesn't shine on the bottom of the hole, and then he builds up the edges to give it a ledge so that it just appears like a big, deep, dark hole. He's also known for his shadows or rain shadows. Now this is a really simple technique. When it starts to rain, you just lay down on the ground and you let the rain fall, and then you get up after a while, and then you take a photo of it. Surprisingly alluring, even though they're very, very simple. Technique can also be done in snow. This is that same rock that we saw the ephemeral piece on. You can see how large that rock is. This is one when he was in Australia. And just to show you, this is him getting up off of the pavement where he has done a rain shadow. One of his more difficult techniques is the adhesion technique, where he actually has to use water in order to adhere various organic matter to other things. So this is done in Japan, and he's using Japanese maple leaves and covering a rock in a river with Japanese maple leaves. Now this is an incredibly difficult process because it has to be a certain amount of wetness, but it can't be too wet, otherwise they'll slide off. But he spent years and years mastering this technique. But he's not only just a conceptual artist with sculpture, he's also a very accomplished photographer. I love this next piece coming up. Not only is it the adhesion technique, but it's also using the color of the leaves in fall in order to cover the rock. Another technique he does is tearing and matching. He will take leaves and he'll tear them, but then he'll match them up with other leaves that are of the exact same size. And he creates an amazing amount of work with this. I'm going to show you a few of the circle works that he does. And I'm always just really in awe of the simplicity, but yet the beauty of the work, but also how meticulous he is in order to make sure that the leaves perfectly match. This is another version that kind of combines his river work with his tearing and his matching. Now, stitching is an important part of his work as well. He uses natural things like thorns and twigs in order to stitch work together. And this appears in a number of different ways. Here we have a hanging piece. This piece was actually in the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, which was at the college that I went to when I did my master's degree in England. He was there just a year before I was there. Now this is another piece that he did in Japan. These Japanese maple leaves are all stitched together. Another example of stitching combined with his river imagery. Another thing that he does, he actually removes. Here he's warmed the frost off of certain leaves and removed the frost so that it's created a circle form. Here he is in a riverbed, and he is scraping the riverbed with his hand in order to create the river form inside of the riverbed. Now, the one thing that's really key to his work, though, especially the photography of his work, is the lighting. You can't just make something really awesome and then just shoot it with your camera and hope that it's going to work out. Lighting is key, and just a matter of moments can change whether the photograph of the piece is a success or whether it's a failure. Here we have a piece that he did, which is a red line of flowers running through green grass, which should be really, really good, but in the slide that you see here, it's really, really way too light. There's too much sunlight. It needs more overcast in order to really pull out the colors. So he has to wait until he has the right moment, and then he can take the photograph. Here we have an amazing photograph which is taken from one side of the piece, which has the sun behind it. Those are icicles which are actually adhered to the rock and to one another. Yes, he's that insane. But if you take it from the other side with the sun facing it, and at a little bit later in the day, then you don't get near the visual impression that you do with the correct lighting. Here's another one. This is icicles which are adhered to a tree in a spiral form. Yes, he is that insane. It takes him hours and hours to do this before the sun rises. He has to take the photo right when the sun is at the perfect angle in the morning, because if you wait just a little bit later on, it's not quite as spectacular, even though the feat is just as impressive. Well, that's all that I have for you. You will have a sheet about the Goldsworthy Project, which will give you more information, and I hope that you're all doing very, very well, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with for this project.